we've got Giga Chikadze. Actually, it's next. Giga Chikadze taking on Jamey Simmons, which is very interesting because Jamey Simmons' real name is James Krause. So he's not the James Krause. He's a different James Krause. So Giga Chikadze, y'all know I've got a problem with Giga, right? Like, he's the guy that I just cannot quite seem to figure out. I've bet against him a bunch, and I've been wrong damn near every time. I went hard against him against Omar Morales in his last time out, and that was the absolute best he has looked in his entire career. So I don't really want to step in front of Giga. It seems like they're trying to keep him busy. At least it seems like they're trying to get him some more experience. He's a kickboxing guy. He's transitioning over to MMA, so he just needs more cage time. But he's coming up against this Jamey Simmons, who's 7-2, and this kid is a grappler. I mean, this kid is a legit grappler. I want to see how wide this line will get, because if there was ever somebody who I was going to try to fade Giga Chikadze with, this would be exactly the kind of fighter that I would take that shot on. He's a hard-nosed wrestler. He pins his opponents up against the cage. He's physically strong. He uses knees and uppercuts to just rock the body of his opponents, and then he takes them down and he mauls them on the ground. The only problem is I don't know if he's UFC caliber. That's my issue. If you took the skill set of Jamey Simmons and you put it in a fighter that had 4 or 5 UFC fights, I'd probably bet him here, especially at this line. We've got Giga Chikadze at minus 470 right now, plus 375 coming on the other side with Simmons. I got to see the weigh-ins on this one. I want to see just how much bigger Simmons is than Giga. If he's not bigger than Giga, then there's no chance. Giga's looked way too good lately. And one thing that was extremely, extremely red flag is that, a real technical term there for you, is that Jamey Simmons has a knockout loss on his record. It was like a 30-second knockout. He doesn't set his takedowns up. He went in like this, arms way out to the side, not protecting his jaw, and just caught a knee straight to the chin, and it was over. He dropped like a sack of potatoes. And you can't do that in the UFC. Giga's knees and kicks will eat this kid alive if he can't close that distance. Now, granted, we are in the small cage, so that will help the grappler. But, I mean, this is one where I've got to say Giga or pass, and the price is just so wide I can't bet Giga here. We'll see what the props look like. Maybe a knockout for Giga is totally possible. He hasn't been taking things seriously enough to actually pull that kind of thing off in the UFC so far, but maybe he's got enough of a can here in front of him that he'll actually be able to get it done this time. So let's go back over Trevin Giles versus Bevon Lewis. Having Sam Alvey on the show was great, but I also wanted to tiptoe a little bit. We are talking sports betting, so I do have to analyze these fighters from every which angle and sometimes say things that aren't super nice or respectful of said fighters. So I was being a little bit kind here. Trevin Giles and Bevon Lewis, they're both fades for me. You all know, every time Trevin Giles or Bevon Lewis steps in the cage, I'm looking to bet against them. So I have 2 fighters right now that I want to bet against, and they're facing each other. So I don't know what to do on this one. Kind of like I mentioned, Bevon Lewis has a super fraudulent takedown defense percentage, and Trevin Giles is the better wrestler of the 2. We see him take all of his fights to the ground. Low IQ is the issue with Trevin Giles. He will go down with people like Gerald Mearshart, James Krause. Like, he's looking to try and out-wrestle these guys every single time. If he can get Bevon Lewis down, I think Trevin Giles can coast to a 15-minute decision. However, if he's forced to stand up with Bevon Lewis, like I said, Bevon Lewis was beating Uriah Hall when they fought up until that big knockout moment, and I don't think that Trevin Giles has that kind of power. So maybe the over is the look here. I don't know that either of these guys is capable of finishing the other, and they both really need a win in this spot. So maybe they'll both come out a little bit more tentative. Trevin Giles, maybe he can actually sync up a submission himself, but I just don't have any idea what Bevon Lewis's ground game looks like because we have not seen him get to the ground. So, and Giles is a police officer. So another question is, how much is he training? How much does he get in the gym? How seriously is he taking this fight? There's a lot of civil unrest in the world right now, so he's probably working extra hours overtime. This is definitely going to be a one that we really need to see these guys at the weigh-ins. Make sure you tune in. The post-weigh-in show is undefeated, folks. We absolutely hammered last week on the post weigh-in show. We got the Cole Williams, Jason Witt under 2.5 at plus 154. That cashed easily. And then we got Witt by sub at plus 670. Best spot on the card for us last week. And that came from the post weigh-in show because we were able to see that his opponent just looked awful on the scales and Witt looked fantastic. We were able to sniff out the path to victory there and cash in big time. So make sure you tune in on Friday. That's one that I'll definitely be looking at for that post weigh-in read, see if we can sniff anything out. And yeah, Jamal Anthony, this is a sketchy ass card. There are some good matchups here. I think it's going to be a real fun one to watch, but it's going to be a very difficult one for us to bet. And that's kind of the only issue. I do want to take a real quick break here. Shout out the boys over at GOATCapitalSports.com. They're our other sponsor here on the Diehard MMA Podcast. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter. They give out free plays all the time. And if you're looking for somebody who you can give a very reasonable fee for sports betting picks, they cover soccer, baseball, basketball, football, all the other stuff that I simply cannot handle for you guys with any type of success. Make sure you follow GOATCapitalSports.com. Tell them Clint sent you. They love me over there. Get signed up, and they will hand you some winners.